Today, Steve and I are going to be talking to Brian Ball, the writer of the mature readers comic Rags Comics and New Age Ninja Corps, on our fourth Indie Comics Creator Spotlight. Why don't you say hello, Brian?
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Yeah, nice to have you on the show. So, I guess we'll go ahead and just jump on into it. I guess my first question, in reading Rags, I'm curious about your struggles with piracy. At the beginning of Rags comic, you talk about your feelings about piracy in no uncertain terms. I mean, I'm not a fan of piracy either. Don't get me wrong. I believe that creators and entertainers need and deserve all of the money coming from them for their creations and all of their work and time and money they invest in it. But you also mentioned having to raise your prices because of piracy, which sounds to me like there's maybe a personal story behind that. Like you've been affected directly. Am I way off there, or can you tell me about that?
Oh yeah. So basically, this is like way back when we first started. We had a lot of people pirating the book, reposting it on all these different websites, and I'll tell you where I figured out where the source of this was in a little bit. But it was like I was kind of it was taking forever to get stuff done, and you had all these people reading this book and like, man, should hurry up and do more. Like, yeah, we can do more as soon as we get the money for it, And and with piracy, you tend to see a lot of like, man, this book is good, this book is great, or whatever the case may be, but there needs to be more. It's like, well, you can't do more if you're not making any money off of stuff. Like artists got to get paid, colorists got to get paid, yada yada yada. So, pretty much, um, what I figured out was people were just grabbing the book from Comixology and then reposting it, which meant we had all these views, which I guess is great, but we're not making any money off of it. So
Right.
imagine, you have 3,000 people coming to your store, and then they're just, grabbing stuff and leaving and not even paying you for it. But they're like, oh man, yeah, this store is great. But you steal from the store every time. So it's
Well, I was always wondering why I couldn't find it on Comixology anymore. I will say I'm one of the few people who bought the first issue and paid for it. So,
yeah,
but
I'm sorry. It did turn out like Comixology. That's the place where all the pirating starts, and it's like, you know what? If you can't protect my property, which that means you don't really care about my money. So once it starts affecting pocketbooks, it's like you gotta start making smart decisions.
so
And
totally
that being
understandable. We've
said,
all been there.
yeah, that being said, right? If you went to our website, newageninjacore.com, we were selling the book for like the digital book for $1. So there really was no reason for you to pirate the book. Not you specifically, but
Right.
it just made piracy so silly at that point. And then we were also doing we were releasing pages like once a week on our website that we ended up just getting rid of. It was like you could read it for free, you could buy the digital for $1, and yet still people were stealing the book or stealing the digital version. And it's like someone's got to pay for the website, the free website. That's got to get paid for, and everything else. So it just ended up having just the jerk prices up just a tad to cover you know revenue that was
Yeah,
lost. Now,
totally. People got to realize that there's more to it than just a book. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and they want to keep getting entertained, but they don't want to pay for the entertainment they're getting. It makes it impossible to make the entertainment.
right? I know there's been like so many books that I've seen people like, man, this book was great. How come they didn't finish it? And my question is like, but did you buy it? Like, no, I just read it off the site. I'm like, well, there's your answer. They probably
Yeah.
didn't see it as a success. They're probably seeing like, oh, this is just a money dump, and then whatever. And this kind of goes into why people. I kind of got flamed for having a Patreon that sold the uncensored, and it was just like, look, man, if you want to read it, it's there. I'm not telling you to go support it, but it's there if you want to read it uncensored. The option's on you. But if we're not making any money off of it, then it's gonna come extremely slow.
Yeah, and there's always a quid pro quo and a trade-off that you have to kind of make for that, and that's all just part of the business of comics. So, Brian, kind of moving on a little bit into more positive territory. I seem to recall that you published Rags through Antarctic Press. That's actually a company that I have a little bit of I wouldn't say history with, but I will say, having lived in the Texas area, I'm familiar with them. Can you tell me how you got started with them and how you got them interested in Rags?
Oh man, okay, so I was reading Antarctic Press stuff since like I was a kid. So we're talking like early Ninja High School, when they used to do pocket mangas. Um, I know Gold Digger's like their biggest and
Yeah.
still most consecutive ongoing title. So I've always been aware of them. The person who actually got me embedded with them was actually Timothy Lim, and while he was doing his Black Ops and My Hero Macadamia stint.
Hmm.
So he just basically shot the introduction around and was like, "Hey, just send these guys your stuff." Like, okay, sure. Right in the middle, I think we were working on like issue 3 at the time, and so, yeah, all right, here's our stuff, and they're like, "Oh God, we love this. We want to publish you." I'm like, oh, cool. Went from there.
As somebody who's not really familiar with that, I mean, how did that turn out? Obviously, you're not with them anymore.
Oh, we're still with them.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, we're still. So the deal is, we published like we let them publish all the censored versions of the book, and then we had the uncensored version on Patreon, so we can get like the funding. And the original, probably shouldn't talk contracts, but the contract was for 7 books, and kind of right now we're about to start issue 8 through the rest of it, and they actually have like one of our spin-off books, Sailor Wagowski, but with the paper shortage and everything that's been going on in the industry, I was like, I'm not sure when exactly that's coming out, but we're still working with them. We haven't ever left. There were people that pushed us to leave, and it was kind of one of those, I'm not going to cut my nose off in protest of somebody else, which
Right.
something that didn't really involve me in the first place, but I got dragged into. It's I mean, what happened to that person sucked. Not gonna lie, but it had absolutely nothing to do with me.
All right. Yeah. I guess that totally makes sense. I can see where you were coming from there. So, just going over the credit pages on the comics you sent over, I have a few questions, but we'll take it one at a time.
Sure.
I see that you and Trent Luther wrote the story for Rags. Luigi Teruel, I
Terrell?
hope I'm saying that correctly. Drew the art, and Raven Monroe did the colors.
Yes,
But
along with Capuchin.
okay.
Yeah, we had 2 colors on this project.
My initial question, I guess, is what's with the Liz Finnegan as Regina Wagowski? Is she a Patreon backer or something?
No, Liz is this funny lady I found on Twitter, and she cracks me up. And we have permission to use her likeness, for Regina, so we get to exploit Liz for fun and profit. That's the basic gist of it.
So
That being
basically,
said,
you're casting like all these different people for the characters in your books. Is that it?
not all different people, just Liz particular.
Oh, okay.
That being said, she has done she has helped out a lot in like the marketing aspect of it, defending us from trolls whenever we get like too overwhelmed, because working on the comics, not unlike doing project management in a way. You got to make sure everything's on schedule, everything's going in on time. You're not getting hold up by inks, colors, or printer or paper shortages or whatever. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and I just don't have the bandwidth to deal with criticism or whatever else going on. Like,
well, Twitter is
she'll
a
step
time
in.
sink and a distraction, so I completely understand.
Yeah, so she'll just come in and just be like, "Oh, hey, I got this. Don't worry about it." She also helped with getting this is kind of a spoiler, getting permission from other celebrities to use their likenesses. So it's been a very good beneficial relationship as of late, and we've all become friends and just shit posters.
I can understand the feeling. So, what particular influences inspired the creation of Rags? I mean, just beyond, the influence of Liz Finnegan. Are there any zombie stories that inspired you, or any favorite versions of zombies that really worked for you?
It was really just a really drunken night of Left 4 Dead 2 debauchery between me and Trent that really initiated this. I got caught using a nude mod, and well, the rest is history.
So, well, speaking of influences, I know that in my work, there are several things that influences my stories and my writing style, from books to film and television. I was wondering if there was anything beyond the post-apocalyptic zombie horror genre that may have influenced Rags.
Yes, a lot of manga, a galactic ton of manga. You probably won't notice this in like the first story arc, but definitely in this second and third and all consecutive story arcs, you'll start seeing this kind of ever developing story arc start taking place. Things like the Guyver, Kashern, Robotech, all my favorite, cartoons and anime and mangas that I had growing up. Dominion Tank Police, Ghost in the Shell, Cowboy Bebop, the anime, not the live action.
Obviously, yes.
Another one. Trigun. Like, I have a lot of manga and anime influences in my work, and I draw more upon those than I do Western storytelling, because I feel Western storytelling is kind of limited in its approach, and I find the more manga-ish, anime-ish storytelling gives you a lot more freedom. You're not typecast into a box, if you will. So you could start a story out with something completely ridiculous and then turn that into something completely else. And that's usually that's what we gun for in our storytelling. It's like, you gotta have fun, you gotta laugh, but at the end of the day too, you gotta have like something underneath the layer of ridiculousness that's actually telling a deeper story than what most people would catch on their first or second read through.
That totally makes sense. And I will say I appreciate how much your lead heroine is a ginger. I find her interesting. Regina starts out being a difficult character to like at first, but it's clear there's a character arc in mind for her. So as you're saying, the depth beneath the surface there. She reacts to a lot of different people in situations with snark and aggression, but we see that she's using it to cover some deep personal problems that she's dealing with. How do you see Regina's personal journey as she moves through the zombie-infested wasteland?
There's a lot of people who kind of took that snark the wrong way. They initially read that as, she's just angry ginger number 448 in all of comic books. And once you look beyond the surface level, she's not angry. She's just, she never caught like a break, if you will. So she never had like an opportunity to just sit down, take account of the situation she's in. She just kept moving and moving and moving and moving and moving, and these people are doing things to her, and she never got a chance to stop and breathe. And so the reaction that she has isn't, I hate you people because I'm angry. It's more of like stress and frustration. Like that first iteration with Riley, I got flamed so much. I got so much hate mail. It's like, I don't understand why she was so angry and hateful against the kid. I'm like, okay, let's break this down. She just ran stark naked from wherever she was at to try and get in this building, getting chased by zombies. So you got that fear and adrenaline, right?
Yeah.
Get hit in the face with a baseball bat. Then you have people pointing guns in your face, and I don't know how most people would react. But for a guy who's had weapons pointed in his face before, that really ups your intensity and adrenaline level to a certain point, and then it's after that, when you're done with that situation, the emotions start kicking in and you're stressed out. And then take all that, and she went to a room by herself. He followed her, and she's still basically naked at this point, and he's touching and groping up on her.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'd be slightly pissed too. So
Totally.
Yep.
The
And
story
I definitely
arc-
got a sense of a fear response as well.
yeah, and that's all we were trying to say without like trying to spill it out for the audience. So we're hoping like we take her journey from this person who was absolutely scared, pretty much running scared, naked, and afraid, and having like this just bare primal reaction to somebody who's a little bit more calculated, a little bit more comfortable in their own skin, and they're just there's a thing to do, and they're very capable of doing it without being too capable, if that makes sense.
So I'm curious. In the credits, it says that you and Luther wrote the story. Can I assume you're both like co-creators?
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess I'll get into a little bit more into Regina. One thing I noticed early on.
Did you not hear me?
No.
I heard you.
Okay. Could you answer that?
Yeah, I answered. Say, yeah, we're both co-creators.
I'm sorry. I totally didn't hear you at all. My bad.
Yeah, I did hear the response.
Okay.
The short version is we were both like drunk out of our mind writing this and laughing and giggling like schoolgirls as we kept the script getting more ridiculous. We're just trying to see how ridiculous we can do things and still have it make logical sense.
Yeah, trying to bend it until it breaks. Yeah.
Yep.
Totally. How did you guys meet? I mean, how did you decide to start making rags together?
Oh, so Trent and I met playing World of Warcraft. I actually met him through his wife Michelle. She and I used to play WoW a lot together, and then she brought Trent on board, and Trent and I used to hate each other. And then after a while, we just started playing other games together. And when it came for Left 4 Dead or anything that was like PvP focused, just see who could sabotage the other the worst. And we just send memes to each other and whatnot. What actually started this was I get bored a lot. That's my problem. So I got bored one day and I was like, hey, what should I write? And I posted that to my friends on Facebook, and Trent hit me up. He was like, hey man, remember when I caught you playing that lewd zombie mod on Left 4 Dead? Like, yeah. You remember that whole story about the excuse that you're trying to make? Like, yeah. He's like, we should write that. Like, oh my god, we should. And then we just started banging the scripts out, and it's really the gist of it.
Yeah, I've noticed that you do draw a lot on video games. I mean, especially like the older style of video games, particularly like in the last issue. I think it was noticeable, but there was definitely kind of a sense of that. How much of are video games an influence on your process?
Oh man, 110%, man. If you pay real close attention to our covers, 90% of them are video game related. Like the first cover that everyone sees, the one where she's holding her weapon on with her left hand, it's up in the air, she's got the zombies behind her. That's actually taken from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. That's kind of like a slight cover swipe. And then we did another one for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 that we got Timothy Lim to draw for us. And there's a lot of there's people giving a shit about our covers, and it's like, man, do you not see just the ridiculousness and facetiousness of these covers? Like they're just silly. We also did a cover based off of the Turks from Final Fantasy VII, and that's been called the Men in Black cover to annoy me because they look black. And we've done. There's a lot more. Oh, we even got like the Resident Evil box in the book, but nobody's noticed that it's the Resident Evil box. So like there's a lot of nods to video games in the book, and you just have to keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, I will say the military shooter part of it kind of interests me a bit, especially since it does seem like you focus, some of the attention on wartime and all of that. So it seems like it makes sense with that, the military shooter aspect would be that as well. But I kind of want to go a little deeper into that and maybe what you're kind of been saying with that with respect to Regina. So, one of the questions I had is it seems to me like, in some respects, Regina seems to suffer from PTSD. And it seems like that's part of the reason why she changed after she was out of the service. What do you think that's fair to say? And if so, how much of Rags is an exploration of wartime trauma?
It's PTSD and combat stress. Two things that I'm very knowledgeable of, being as I suffer from both. So it really is a exploration of military versus civilian life. Even just her running around naked is like, once you leave service, you tend to be kind of thrown out to the world kind of naked, not knowing what to do, because while you're in, formations at 0630, you do PT for an hour, work calls at 9, motor maintenance is from 9 to 9 to 11, 9 to 11:30, be back at 1300. Close of business is about 1600, 1800, depending on the first sergeant commander, and you have a very dictated, scheduled life. Hey, I'm feeling sick. I broke my leg. I'm going to take myself to sick call. Civilian world is like, I have to find a primary care provider. How does this work? How do I use my health insurance? If I need glasses, I just go down to medical. Like, hey, I need to schedule an eye appointment so I can get new BCGs. Here, civilian side, it's like, what do I do? How does this all work? Do I use my health insurance? Do I pay out of pocket? How do I get reimbursed? And it's all these like little contrasts to say, there's things that you know how to do when you're in the military, but once you get out, you're kind of just, thrown to the wolves and just let the suffer for yourself.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like, she's definitely seems like she's struggling to make that transition from military life to civilian life, and as a result, she's making a lot of bad decisions because she doesn't know how to adapt to that. That totally makes sense. And I will say it's interesting that you kind of mentioned nakedness and vulnerability when it came to that. I kind of sense like, in a way, there is both the metaphoricalness of vulnerability and nakedness, as well as like the physical aspect. So, since Regina is such a tough, badass fighter, how important is it that we see her being placed in vulnerable positions, particularly, with her constantly losing her clothes and, having to survive in those kinds of situations?
It was very important. Like, you don't want a character that wins all the time, at least not starting out. You want somebody who struggled and fought and clawed their way to victory through a terrible situation. Like, how does Timothy Lim likes to say, when you're doing comics these days, you need to start doing Asian hard mode. And Regina kind of is stuck in what we call Asian hard mode, where, she's naked. If she gets bit, scratched, or anything, she's done. Like, absolutely done. And it can come from anywhere, any direction. So she's got that high level stress, which impedes her ability to make decisions, where she's got to calm herself down and, like, okay, use your brain, think your way out of this. You can't fight your way out of everything. And the one time she did try to fight everybody, she ended up getting jumped and lost. So it's like, you can't fight your way out of every situation. You got to use your head, and you got to be aware of your surroundings if you're going to fight. And we see all that coming together, like, right at the end there, where the ending stuff happens.
I think that my impression was that vulnerability extends even more beyond like the physical danger. Like, I couldn't help but notice that many of the crappy situations Regina ends up in, and even some of the help she receives, it all seems to come from the hands of really just I mean, vile people. Operator in particular is a prime example. I mean, could you elaborate on I mean why that is? I feel like maybe there's a subtle message there.
There's if you've lived in California, it just makes sense, man. That's the one way I can say it. It's just you can't expect everyone in the world to play nice with you, and just because you're this is another like kind of nod for my battle boys and they're still serving. Just because you're military or former military doesn't mean you can get out and people are going to treat you the exact same. Operators he's a douchebag, yes. He's kind of a douchebag with a mission, and just so happens he's really good at doing that particular mission. And one thing you'll see is like once he kind of checks Regina and clears that, oh yeah, you've actually served, then his tone with her changes.
Totally.
Where he's more willing to help her out than he's willing to help out the civilians. Because to him, the civilians are just, fat, lazy, entitled people that aren't really willing to risk their own lives to do what needs to be done. Well, he's out there, risking his butt, doing what needs to be done, having a blast and being an asshole at the same time. But still, he's out there risking himself for these people who he feels like are ungrateful. So having someone who he can relate to is kind of beneficial for him. And he's one of those people that's pretty much self-serving. He only really cares about one other person there, and we'll touch on that next story arc. But living in California, there's a lot of people who I've met who are just like this. The first lady that she met, Lee, the big lady, acting like a Karen just because this random lady came in, and immediately you can just pull a number of different things from her. Like she felt threatened that, hey, there's somebody there that she felt was probably prettier than she was, but probably still a lot of the attention from her, and then you had like the other two girls who were more than likely friends with Lee, and like, oh, here's this outsider that came in and everyone's all fawning over her, and she got our friend killed. We need to do something about it. People are pretty vindictive in close situations. So I just wanted to have a more realistic version of society I've met in my time, rather than it being an extreme of one or the other, where everyone's happy and willing to help you out, and everyone's just trying to kill you. And it's kind of more of like it was the closest I can get to like a middle ground.
I can totally see that. That makes sense.
Yeah, I guess you've already mentioned that you're going to do Rags 8, so I'm guessing that there are plans to return to Regina into the world of Rags, and you still have more stories you want to tell with them?
Oh man, we have so many more stories to tell. I think I've said this before. I have like at least 10 years worth of content to get done, as long as Luigi doesn't get tired of my bullshit. And like right now, like I said, we're working on Rags number 8 through the rest of it. Part of that entails like a crossover with Timothy Lim, with Black Ops and Punchline, which is the Matt Weldon, Bill Williams team. And then after that, we have so much. We also have like the Sailor Wagowski side story that we're working on building the world and lore around that right now. So there's at least 10 good years worth of content in queue. Just got to get drawn up.
Wow. Wow, I noticed that there seems to be a lot of affiliations with Rags beyond just the creative team. You sent over several books for us. One of them, American Hops, had among a few uncredited stories the Mythoverse titled Triple Crown from Tyrone Washington, and I guess Dan Sicaro did some editing on Sailor Wagowski, and
Yes.
he's from the Mythoverse too. Is there an affiliation with Mythoverse and Rags Comics?
Yes, the Mythoverse guys and me and Dan especially, we're peas in a pod. Dan has been. I like to call Timothy Lim like the light in the darkness. And I'll actually extend that over to Dan too. Like when things start getting really dark and bleak, Dan's the one who I usually tap on the shoulder, like, "Hey man, what should I do here?" And he's usually the one that has the good head on his shoulders, like, "All right, just calm down, don't react. Just remember you have good content, and this is probably the way out." And like, "Oh yeah, that's right." So I've been really wanting to work with Dan for a hot minute, and American Hops was the one way I got to work with Dan. So he does editing for me. We're going together to do some other stuff together that I can't talk about this moment. But like American Hops is pretty much me and Dan signaling to people like, we're working together, and if anything, our characters ever need to like crossover or anything, it's perfectly okay and fine.
Oh, well, that's intriguing. Others are listed in the credits of Rags as well. There's New Age Ninja Corps, Cracker Coon, and Grand League. What is your part in all of that?
I love those titles, by the way.
Okay, all right. So you gotta. There's a couple of jokes in there. So New Age Ninja Corps is us. We like to call that like I guess you could just call that our imprint. If you take the first letter of New Age Ninja Corps, it turns into either Nanco or Nancy, which is kind of the joke that we have. Just a bunch of Nancys.
Okay.
And then Cracker Coon Creations. Cracker Coon, that's me and Trent, as we belovedly call each other these names just because we're assholes like that to each other. And that's kind of just me and him being jokesters, me acknowledging that. And then the Grand League, I'm not sure if you ever met Dennis Jalen, who used to do Grand Comics on YouTube. We absolutely enjoyed that German man. So every time we do something, we just like to give out little nods to people who we love and appreciate it. So just say Grand League, just as a nod to Dennis.
All right, so there's a little bit of like how Stan Lee used to name the bullpen, kind of a thing going on in there with the nicknames and stuff.
Yes.
All right. So I was curious about the this kind of threw me off actually at the beginning. I wasn't sure about this. At the beginning of Rags, there's a video game character selection screen, which I thought looked pretty cool, but it made it almost gave me the impression that I'm watching, I don't know, a video game of some sort.
Yeah, that was kind of like the look and feel that we wanted. If you look at our trade cover, it's a nod to Resident Evil for the GameCube. So the front and back are painstakingly recreations of that GameCube cover, and it's pretty much built the inside of it to kind of open up and play like a little video game.
Well, it certainly worked. It was a cool effect. And I have to compliment your artist. And I'm still not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Luigi Teruel.
Yeah, I messed
his lines are
too.
Yeah. Okay. His lines are tight, polished. I mean, you can just see all the hard work he put into each panel. His pinpoint detail. I mean, how did you two meet up and decide to make Rags?
Okay, so I'm gonna say this: without Luigi, there would be no Rags. Hands down. Like it probably would have existed, but not in the way it exists currently.
Mm-hmm.
I actually met Luigi by chance, and that was due to me getting scammed out of $1,700 by this other artist who he was friends with. And we'll get into the deeper details of that story. But this guy was supposed to do about $1,700 worth of work for me and never delivered. And so I was rightfully trying to get my money back and whatnot. Well, Luigi stepped in and was like, "Hey, man, I'm friends with, this guy. This is kind of the deal. What's going on? Would you mind just being a little bit more patient?" I'm like, "No, I paid $1,700. I want my stuff." So he's like, "Hey, how about, since I can't access his files, send me what he sent you and I will finish for you." and I'll do $500 worth of free art for you, and we'll call it the day. And he was super professional about it and really just upfront. I was like, okay, fine. And once he got the work done, I was like, oh man, this guy's even better than the guy I hired. And then when it came time to do the $500 worth of free art, I was talking to Trent like, man, what should we get done? He's like, hey, get the rag stuff done. I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally smart. So we got those done, and then I was just looking at those first 5 illustrations, and I was sharing them with Trent. He's like, bro, I'm like, yeah, I know. He's like, this is our guy. Yeah, I know, but I've been such a dick to him. Let's just see if he'll do like 15 pages for us. So I went back and reached out to Luigi, like, hey man, I got some more work for you if you're down. He's like, yeah, okay, sure. And it's just been a beautiful partnership ever since.
Sweet. Yeah, I know what you mean. When you find that perfect artist, we did that with Tosa Nawasika.
Mm-hmm.
When you find that perfect artist, you just know right away. That works out really nice. I like that. I noticed that the colored portions of rags are selective and blended with black and white sections, or even fully colored, like with Regina's past stuff. Was this something that you and Raven Monroe worked out together, or I mean, could you tell us about the creative process on the coloring there?
Okay, so there's 2 things that went into that process. One was budget. 2 was as you start talking, like, we really wanted this to have kind of like a video game feel, and we also wanted to kind of explore a different way of storytelling PTSD without shoving it down people's throats. What we ended up decided to do was like, hey, how about we just do some minimal colors, then everything that's important and that should stick out, how about we color that kind of like when you're walking around in, Resident Evil or whatever, you see like something shiny, and oh, that gets your attention. And also let us to do some other tricks where we can actually do stuff in the background, but distract readers by coloring other things. And so while they're focused on like, oh, this colored stuff in the foreground, there's other stuff going on in the background that they're completely missing. But when they have like their 3rd or 4th read through, it's like, oh my god, I never caught that.
Yeah, I
And
had noticed that a few times. That's a really nice effect.
Right, and then there's also like there's like some other subtle things that we do. And as far as Regina's past memories being full color, those are kind of signify like those were happier times. That's when she felt the most alive, when she was most comfortable, when she felt everything in her life was going great. And then you go from like these happy memories, and then we actually show a point in her life where things kind of change slightly.
Right.
Actually, twice. We do that twice, and like the colors are kind of going grayed out, but not completely.
It seems like the flashbacks are kind of where her life's a little bit more visually grounded, and it seems like where you're dealing with the present, that's where you kind of get more ridiculous and crazy with all the zombie things and all the bizarre situations that happen to her. So there's also a little bit of that going on.
Right, and it's also to really signify, the future is kind of bleak. She's not sure how this is all going to end up, like how this is all going to turn out. Will she end up dead? Will she make it out? There's a lot of uncertainty there. So we just wanted to portray that via colors.
Yeah, I'd say that comes across. Is there anything else that you kind of want to plug or promote while we have you here?
Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Nanco. I also stream on Twitch when I get bored. Twitch.tv rags_comics. Keep an eye out for Mythoverse, Common America. Everyone knows Common America. And just keep an eye out for us. We got a lot of surprises in store. And because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and I was just gonna say, just because we're the quote unquote zombie titty book doesn't mean that we're not actually focused on storytelling.
Oh, totally, and that definitely comes through. where is the like where can people actually pick up physical copies of your comics at? Is that just from Patreon only?
So the uncensored stuff is Patreon only. The censored stuff you can find at your local comic book shop if you can order from there. You can also go to Antarctic Press's website and order the complete censored trade.
Nice, nice. Well, I mean, thank you for coming on the show, Brian. It was really fun having you on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right, I guess we'll see you guys next month for our next creator spotlight.